Jeff is great. He's he made everything a lot easier than it would have been without him. You're great, man. You made everything a lot easier than it would have been without you. He gave me courage to do a lot of things that I wouldn't have tried to do, or he set my goals higher than I would have set them for myself, and he made it possible to achieve them, and I really appreciate that, because now in the next movie, after this, it feels like there's nothing that we can't accomplish, and that's because of Jeff.
It was definitely an interesting experience. David and I had tried to work on a film a few years ago together called The Last Leaf, and we didn't really know each other at all. So coming into this project, it was kind of like a sort of a do-over for us. And David has this edge to him. He has this. His ideas are the furthest thing away from mainstream Hollywood or just filmmaking in general. So I enjoyed that because it kept my mind going. I had to dig deep into different areas of my brain to kind of keep up with his thought process, whether it's the storyline or different scenes. I would have to say, just like David said, I can't imagine moving forward making another project without having David there, as a partner. The 2 years that it took us to make this film, I know it's been commented before, it was so easy. It was so easy to work with David. It was above and beyond, just being friends. Our friendship grew out of the whole thing, and not only that, but I think it kind of expanded our minds. We sort of fed off of each other, and that's kind of what you ask for when you are making movies, telling stories. You want to grow as a filmmaker or as a storyteller, and I think that's exactly what happened over the course of these past 2 years. Is I was able to grow into this different person, and I like who I am now. Thanks to you, buddy. At first, I guess there was a little bit of uncomfortness, because again, David and I really didn't know each other that well. It was kind of like, it's kind of like going into a new job and you don't really know anybody. You sort of keep to yourself. Well, when you're in this kind of environment, you don't really have that choice. You're there with this person, and you sort of you're sort of forced to kind of tell your deepest, darkest secrets to this person when you're, creating this story. You're talking about things that happen in your life to sort of make the story better, make it more personal. And that's the other side of having someone to work with, is that it not only becomes personal for you, but it also becomes personal for this other person. And again, it was extremely easy. It's like we just kind of, everything sort of just fell into place. I can't even say that there was a moment where it was like, yeah, okay, this is going to work. I think it just gradually became what it was. And I can't even go back to a certain moment or a certain day where I realized that, hey, you know what? I really like working with David. This is awesome. I think it became that, and it is what it is. I'm quoting Christiana on that. It is what it is, David.
The first day of scripted shooting with Ethan and Josh, it was such a gay day. We were so gay that day, all of us. It was so gay. But it was the first shots at the theater, the exterior shots at AMC. That was a real tough thing to shoot first because I've always had bad experiences at AMC 24 shooting. So there was those worries on top of not shooting anything for like 2 years. We were all very rusty. None of us had worked together at all. It took that first scene to warm us up, and which is why that scene was cut from the movie. Its only purpose was to warm us up. And then after that, we had just a crazy day. All the adventures of independent filming happened at one time, and I think you could tell the story better.
Yeah, I mean, like David was saying, that first scene was very. I'm thankful that we ended up cutting it out, but I think, is it going to be in the behind the scenes at all? Mm-hmm. It will be in the behind the scenes. You'll be able to tell right away that, I mean, you'll know for a fact that, this is the first scene that they shot together, because you can feel the distance. Amateur, yeah, very amateur, very uncomfortable, and you don't have. Your actors rely on, the director to have that confidence and, not, taking any stabs at David, but that confidence, was not there. David with the camera, and, I've got the script in my hand, and, I was not confident in telling people how they should act or how they should say certain things, because I myself am not an actor. I'm a writer, and that's where I draw my line. But it kind of grew into this, it started to grow into the process of filmmaking. After we finished that scene, we headed out to UNF to film the interior shots of the theater, and I think that's where everything sort of...
We were forced.
Yeah, we really had to basically kick ourselves in the butt and say, we got to do this. And, we took it to another level. We recruited a bunch of college kids. We, basically, for the lack of a better phrase, we broke into a college theater at UNF. We didn't bust any doors open, but we got lucky and found an open door in a theater. And, we had all these strange college kids in there, having them believe that they were going to be a part of this big, huge, gigantic project. And that's when I think it really started to feel like we were filming a movie. That was a moment for us where it was like, okay, we've got not just us two and then our two actors that we cast, but we've also got this group of people that we picked out of a cafeteria sitting in here and waiting on us to say action. And I think that's when the confidence really, became apparent.
I'm embarrassed by the audition, personally, because I hate masks, and I had on a really, really beautiful mask that day, and it actually hurts. I'm glad we lost that behind-the-scenes footage of the audition where we're giving people their parts, because it was just this, like, ridiculous display of artificial professionalism.
Very much. It was like a...
That's all I have to say about the audition. We were blessed, though, because we got all of our main actors at the audition, except for one, Christiana. But we got all of our main actors.
We actually ended up with some people at the audition for some, supporting roles that once we got down to, okay, let's start filming, we ended up actually losing. Yeah. One of the main actresses that was going to play Lisa, we ended up losing her and picking up Christiana. That was just kind of a foreshadowing of events that was going to, happen to us over the course of the 2 years of making the movie. I think it was, who was it that played Jacob's wife? She basically quoted it as being happy accidents, and that's exactly what we had. We had a lot of happy accidents throughout the course of making this movie. So yeah, I mean, the day of auditioning was sort of the foundation for everything that was going to happen to us in the future.
I had butterflies in my stomach like crazy. I stayed up all night the night before, and I had to meet Ben, who played Pastor Melbourne, at I think it was like 2:30 in the morning to ride down to Orlando to be on the Monsters in the Morning. And Russ Rollins was like really cool enough to host the show to set it all up for us, and it was going to be this prank that we play on the Monsters listeners and all the other people on the show. The prank was going to be, this was right after Hurricane Katrina, and the prank was going to be to have Pastor Melbourne, who is, the crazy Baptist preacher from Tomorrow Mourning, in character, go on to the Monsters in the Morning and trash New Orleans and
sort of a fanatic.
Yeah, and just get people really rowdy on the Monsters, and I was very nervous because Ben is extremely unpredictable. And to have him live on the radio, in character, acting like he has all this knowledge of something that he had just recently personally got into himself, it was I was very worried for him. I could just imagine how worried he was. But then he went on there and he pulled it off. It was hilarious, and a lot of people got pissed, which is what we wanted. And it was fun.
I was listening to the program in my car on the way to work, and I had butterflies in my stomach for you guys, because it was just, live on, and we're talking, not just a radio station, but a morning show that, is syndicated all over the nation on satellite radio, and it's also, local in Jacksonville and Orlando and all these major cities, in these towns that we live in. And it was intense. Listening to that and hearing the responses of the people calling in, and basically blasting him, as a pastor, trying to get him to quote certain scriptures out of the Bible. And then even, some of the DJs were getting upset too, because not everybody was in on the joke. Mm-hmm. And then I really thought he was going to get his ass beat by Bubba Whoop-Ass. Right, and then after the fact, David had created like a mock website for the church called messerbaptistchurch.org, messerchurch.org, and there was a guest book in there. And shortly after the broadcast, shortly after the show was over, there were several hits to the website. A lot of people leaving comments and messages, blasting the church, blasting Pastor Melbourne for being a hypocrite, and calling himself a man of God, but yet throwing out these hateful words. And it was a great setup for the mood of the film. It was a really great setup. I have one thing to say as well. Sorry. I was also very nervous about that, because that was the first time that I had shot with the Canon, and to shoot something improv, not knowing who's going to be talking next, and also to shoot something where it's very important to have a good reputation. Like, it felt very important to have a good reputation with these people, because they've seen professionals work, and going in there with a camera that I've never used before to shoot something that's not scripted, I didn't know what was going to happen next, and moving the camera around and trying to get cool shots, because this was originally going to be the opening of the movie, so it had to be like eye-grabbing. So having to, and to not be able to cut and get different shots, you have to do it all in one take. And it was very nervous. We didn't even use it in the movie because it was just too funny. It set the wrong tone for the movie. But the actual controversial side of it fits perfect with the movie, like if you take it in separate doses. That, in my opinion, I know just writing that scene stirred up a lot of emotion, inside of me. You just kind of go back to, fights that you get in with your parents growing up as a rebellious teenager, and in a sense, that's kind of what Kyle was. It was a different kind of rebellion. He was rebelling his sexuality. But I think we can all relate to our parents wanting us to live a certain lifestyle, wanting us to be a certain way, and kind of, seeing this moment where there's a train wreck. That scene was very powerful. There's never been a moment where I've sat down and watched that scene, and when it's over, I've never been in a situation where I didn't have to take a deep breath, basically catch my breath after it's finished, because everyone did a fantastic job. And I'd have to say that was probably one of the scenes where we did the most takes as far as capturing the right emotion. I mean, you could get all your lines right, the actors could get all their lines right, but if it didn't have the right pitch, if it didn't have the right tone, if the response wasn't given the right way, we did it all over again. And I mean, we had, we got lucky with a great house. Scott and Krista Fordham gave us their house to use, and it was just this, the exterior was like this beautiful neighborhood, this picture-perfect family, and I think everybody in, middle to upper class suburbia can relate to that kind of situation where you give off this aura of perfection when, in reality your family, the people that are closest to you, are imperfect in their own ways. And I think that our actors did a fantastic job of portraying that in the scene, and it wasn't so much a breakdown as it was sort of an awakening. It's kind of that moment, that rock bottom moment where this family crashes and burns on this one night, and that's when there's this realization that they're a lot worse off than maybe they thought they ever were. And there's a lot of things that are dealt with in that scene. You deal with forgiveness, you deal with rebellion, you deal with the dynamics of a family growing up. There's so many things in that scene that I think just about everybody can relate to.
I was very excited about shooting those scenes because it was like domestic shots, and I was very excited about shooting things in Tomorrow Mourning that was like normal activities or normal things that people see every day. I was excited about showing that in a different way. That house was so perfect, and I think all the actors, Ben and Rita and Ethan, I think they really fed off of the environment. The environment worked out so perfectly for the family. I think it made it a lot easier for them to be who they were, be their characters. And when they started actually acting out the scenes, it was very awkward. It was almost like the way you feel when you sleep over a friend's house and their parents get into a fight and you're in the room with them. It felt that real when it was in person shooting it. That was a weird night. It felt like something bad really did happen that night when we went home. So I guess it worked out. Rarely does anything happen dirtier during like when you get it on video. Rarely does something look dirtier than it did on paper. And there is no amount of words that could describe how nasty, physically, mentally, spiritually, any way you could possibly think of feeling. There's no way to describe how nasty you feel in being in that environment where we shot all of Lisa's scenes and all of the things that we shot. It was very disgusting and disturbing, and at the same time it was beautiful because we knew what we were capturing. And it's very, very weird shooting those scenes because the majority of them were sex scenes of some kind. And it's very awkward to direct a sex scene, but Christiana made it very comfortable. I remember the first thing that she said in there, just tell me exactly what you want. And that she like immediately did. I mean, it seemed so hard to do that, to come out and say something like that, but when she said it, just seemed very easy. She put everybody in their professional places, and it was immediately,
I think as a director that gives you a lot of confidence too, because when you've got an actor that's giving you that kind of trust, to say, especially when you're dealing with scenes like that where they're basically telling you, just tell me what you want me to do, and they've read the script, they know what takes place in a scene like that, and they're giving you the freedom to put them in these awkward positions. I mean, that in itself, if it didn't, it should have relayed a message to you that says, I am a director. I am actually, these people see me as not just, some guy with a camera that lives in Jacksonville and wants to make a little movie. I mean, there was obviously a lot of respect.
And when she said that, it immediately, like said, it gave me the freedom to do all the shots that were in my head the night before. Like, probably half of those shots would not have been shot because of fear if she wouldn't have given me that given me that freedom. So it was a great day, like a great learning experience, and I grew a lot that day. I think we all grew a lot in some kind of way that day, as far as knowledge goes, to a different part of life, different side of life. And it was a dirty experience, a dirty, beautiful experience.
It's almost, there were moments that were almost too realistic. I mean, I remember the one scene when Ralph, who played the street preacher, came in and raped Lisa and had her on the ground, and had her mouth, and again, take these two people that are playing these characters, they're good friends outside of these characters, and I'm sure it was very awkward for them, but it was, David's in one corner getting his shot, and I'm in another corner watching how the scene's being played out, and it was the longest 3-4 minutes of my life, and there were moments where I literally wanted to just jump out of my skin, and I wanted to yell cut, because it just seemed like, even though you're making a movie and this is just, they're portraying this moment and these characters, it seemed too real, like she was really getting hurt, like he was really hurting her and really causing some serious damage. And I mean, I don't want to sound like a bitch, but I got choked up. I mean, there were moments where I literally got choked up at what was happening. It was intense. It was very intense.
I was so excited about doing the church scene because just all the stuff that we were going to have people do, and they didn't know about it. That was very fun. I was kind of nervous because I was getting there a little late, so I wasn't sure about how the turnout was going to be, but Rita hooked it up. She got a buttload of people out there. Jeff, you got a bunch of people out there too, didn't you? A lot of my family came out as well, and
Expectation.
Yeah, we pulled up to a full church. It was packed, and everybody was singing and having a good time, and we got this church. The church was actually an old church, an old Methodist church, I think, and then they closed it down and just made it into a community center that you could rent. So we rented it for the night, and it was actually on a Wednesday night, so it was kind of like attending church anyways, which was kind of neat. And I was very excited about putting Ben in the position to get up on a stage and scream in front of 50 or 60 people, or however many people showed up.
I don't think those church walls had seen or heard anything quite like that.
Definitely not. And then I was so excited to see all these normal looking people do the Hitler thing, and kids, yeah, the innocent little girls, one who stands out in my mind. And then the Jim Jones thing outside, it was that night I really felt like we were doing something. Like once we got these shots captured, it took the quality of the movie up so many levels in my mind to have something like that captured to put in the movie. And I was just excited to get that done.
The thing about that scene that kind of stands out in my mind is how choreographed it was. I mean, David had actually written a hymnal from scratch to have the chorus sing to. He burned a CD for me to listen to. David didn't show up right away, and then I was out in my car having, David called me on my cell and said, hey, have them listen to that hymnal and have them practice it. And so I brought them all out to my car, and they're out there listening, and I wish you would have been there, because it was amazing. I mean, there was they were very serious about what they were going to do, and they were all out there practicing this hymnal, and they were just really getting into it. And on top of that, I know the day before, actually I think it was probably the week before, I wrote this sermon that was just very Armageddon, very end of days, and that Pastor Melbourne was going to be up there just hollering at the congregation, and they were all just, the facial expressions, they were all just so into this sermon. There was a lot of singing going. It was like being at church. It literally was like we were in church, but it was it was not a church I would ever want to attend. Because it was just take out the Jim Jones scene, even before we filmed that. Take out the symbology of the Hitler, the Hitler thing. It was just a very David Koresh sort of, just there was like this atmosphere that was very brainwashing. It was like a brainwashing experience, and I think that was very opinionated on our part, but I think at the same time, again, I think that a lot of people can relate to being exposed to that type of religion.
The Haven was crazy. I actually wasn't nervous at all that day. That was like towards the end of the shoot. We were high, man. We were high on
almost being finished.
Yeah, we were almost finished, and we had done so much. We went down there with big letter S's on our chest, and the extras were. The extras all came out, and it was so awesome how they all were so supportive and hung out for so long. And of course, Johnny Fuck and the Mother Lovers came out, and they got everybody kind of amped and ready to go, and got me personally amped because I hadn't got to see them live in a long time. So I was excited about that. And then Vocal Drop, who set the whole thing up with the Haven, and they played the band Righteous Warrior, which is Dan's surf clothing line. They performed on the stage, and it was really weird doing that scene because we had never done anything like to choreograph an actual performance, like shooting a live music video or something. It was very experimental because we had never done it before, and I had no idea of how other people had done it. I couldn't find anything behind the scenes.
One of the scenes that, because we had a few scenes like that where we could have easily been in and over our heads with a scene like that, but again, we just got lucky with having the right people, the right time and the right location to pull it off, and it didn't even feel like that we were doing anything that was overwhelming.
Yeah, for the amount of for the complexity of that scene, that whole day, that whole trip, and the whole shoot was very relaxing. It was very laid back, and we had great pizza afterwards.
In the parking lot.
And I remember Audie was very nervous the whole time. So we of course took full advantage of that, and so that was fun. And yeah, it was a fun day.
The first thing I remember about B-roll day is actually going out to scout the location. It was a area that I've been to before. My dad and my sister had taken me out there. One of the first places I actually went to in Jacksonville. My dad's a big fisher, so it was this little pond that he took me fishing to. I took my son out there to go fishing one time. So And I told David about it. I was like, hey, there's this great place, that we can go to. There's actually a lot of different elements out there. There's this really crazy looking tree. There's a broke down bus. There's this old abandoned house out there that's basically torn down to its foundation. There were these little, I don't even know what they were, but to me they look like tombs, above ground tombs. So there was actually a lot of different things for us to play with out there for capturing these visuals. So we actually drove out there one evening with my wife's Jeep Grand Cherokee, and it had just rained the night before, and it was like this torrential downpour. And we ended up going out there, and it's off this dirt road, and you kind of have to, sort of drive around these puddles and everything. So we had been doing this the whole time. Got out at a few places, scouted some locations and everything. Didn't have a camera on us, but we were just kind of capturing the images in our mind. And once we got out there, we got up to this one area, and I wanted to show David this house. And to get to the house, we had to drive up this hill, but in order to get up the hill, we had to bypass this sort of large puddle. And again, I figured, okay, we can do what we've been doing all night, which is basically just drive around it. So I started to drive around it, and then what ended up happening is the whole left side of the Jeep submerged into this it wasn't even supposed to be a lake, but it ended up becoming a lake. And I've got water up to my windshield. David's, up here, and he opens his door, and he gets out, and he's kind of looking at me like, what are you going to do? And I'm looking at him like, what are you doing? And water starts coming in and everything like that. So long story short, we finally walked up to this house. It seemed like they were all having sort of a church gathering, and ironically, this guy was like a local promoter for entertainment and whatnot. And he ended up coming out trying to get us out. He wasn't able to. I got in touch with my wife and finally worked up the courage to let her know what had happened. And strangely enough, she didn't freak out, but she got someone out there that had a big 4x4 diesel truck, and he pulled us out with no issues. David ended up seeing a fox, which kind of scared the crap out of him, which was pretty funny. And but that was one of those moments where the film sort of took a turn in different areas and became a curse, but through that curse, it just became another one of those happy accidents, because the B-roll footage that we captured is a lot of the same footage that you're seeing, during the opening credits. And, we ended up filming the last scene out there, which obviously is, the most important scene in the entire movie. So it couldn't have worked, which was cut, by the way, but it worked. A lot of the B-roll. Yeah, it worked out perfectly, and the Jeep was fine, smelled for a little while, but perfect running condition, no issues with it, and that's my memory of B-roll footage.
I had a lot of fun that day because we didn't have anything planned. It was a very easy day, so we just pretty much chilled all day. The only time I really wanted to kill myself and everybody around me was when we were backing the camera out of the house, and something would go wrong every single time. And there's something going on with the video too, which actually happened to be something that we ended up with like 20 good takes, because something that was wrong in the playback wasn't actually wrong on the video. That was the only bad part about that day, but other than that, I realized waking up early that morning to go out there and shoot the B-roll that I could really do this for a living, because I had never felt so awake at like 6 o'clock in the morning ever in my life. I was ready and willing to get up because of what we were going to be doing, and that morning I realized I could see myself waking up and doing that every day if I could. So that's another significant tidbit about the B-roll day. the motel, getting everybody together, that was crazy because Friday, it was a Friday night that we shot it, I believe. Wasn't? Yeah, it was a Friday night, and we all had to work on Friday. We got off work and had to rush to this motel. You had to run to the motel and get the room during the day. That was actually not that bad of a night. A bunch of hookers came out. Yeah. Everybody was on time and in their places, and everything felt. We were actually a little bit behind schedule, but that's actually early and ahead of schedule compared to most of the times. It was really weird. You know, everybody in the cast was together for the first time since the audition, and you worked your magic with the motel clerk. I was shooting the scene with I was shooting some scene, and you're in there talking to the motel clerk, and I don't know how the hell you did it, man.
I would introduce them to M. Night Shyamalan because they were an Indian family, and they said, "Oh, M. Night Shyamalan, he's from my country."
I did not think we were going to get to shoot in that office. That I'd never in a million years thought that was going to happen.
It was interesting because the family was actually there, and what's funny is the dad, or I guess the owner of the motel, was coaching Jason on how to be a motel clerk. Like, you know, are you not going to ask for a receipt? You were supposed to give a receipt. And it was funny because he was really trying to be helpful. And I know the kids that were there were sort of awestruck by what was going on. It was just this innocent Indian family, the grandma, the mom, the dad, the kids, all living in this tiny little room, living, I guess, the American dream.
I'm going to keep it short because I know we're probably running out of tape, but yeah, that was a wild night from beginning to the end. Everything worked out perfectly. It was just very cold. We had, just the very exciting elements of that night, having somebody run around downtown in their underwear and a hospital gown and screaming drug names on the side of the street a block from the mayor's office downtown at 2 o'clock in the morning, and it's 30 degrees outside, and having screeching cars come around. For that night, we owned the city. We had a set. Filming downtown, I always wanted to shoot downtown or late at night, and because it's like you own it. There's nobody else there. And
2 o'clock in the morning.
It
was very late at night.
And we actually waited. We had to wait and meet at Denny's at like 4 in the morning to be somewhere for the sunrise shot, but we didn't actually end up using. We ended up waiting for too long we ended up waiting all night for nothing, and but it was still really fun. Yeah. We had a good time at Denny's. David Woolheiser drank 2 shots of syrup with salt.
That was, for David and I, the most grueling weekend, I'd have to say, of our entire lives. Talk about sleep deprivation and exhaustion just kind of colliding at the same moment in time. We woke up, I don't even know what it was. It was another early day. It was like 6 o'clock in the morning, and we went out, shot the nursery scene, and all day long we're preparing for yet another overwhelming scene where, as we're writing the script, how are we going to pull off a car crash? How are we going to do this? And again, David had his way of finagling certain things to kind of take place. He knew someone that had a car that was literally broken down, and when I say broke down, I don't mean that it runs like crap. I mean that it does not run at all. And we were going to use this for the car, and it's interesting how we got this car to have the momentum to hit the tree. We had a truck pushing the car to get up to speed. It was like Back to the Future all over again, except we didn't have the clock tower or the lightning striking at the right moment. After that, we're talking that was like 4 or 5 in the morning. After that car crash scene, David and I had to drive down to Orlando to shoot this club scene, and we were already going on like easily, well over a day without sleeping. But when it's one thing to like not sleep and sit around at home and do nothing, but it's another thing to film an entire day just warping your mind around everything that's happening. You're just physically exhausted, mentally exhausted, and you take a 2-hour drive down to Orlando, and then you take a 2-hour drive back after everything. And that was, I'd have to say, the best and the worst weekend. It was the best weekend because we finished everything we wanted to finish. We got everything we wanted to get. But the worst weekend because it was just exhausting. I mean, that was really the day, that was really the moment for me where I actually saw filmmaking as a job and not so much, you know, a fun thing to do. I mean, it was fun, but I would not really want to do a whole lot of that kind of filmmaking because it was tough.
Yeah, that whole weekend was like all the aspects of all-American independent filmmaking. We had heists, car crashes, staying up all night, extra shots. It was it started off, it was just so interesting. It started off with the angel trumpets, trying to shoot at the nursery. We ended up, you know, the manager at the nursery didn't communicate with the manager who's actually working that day, so we had all of the actors up for no reason at 6 o'clock in the morning. You saw this nursery on the in the morning that you knew of off of Kingsley, so we went there and luckily got in. But while we were getting in, you know, spray painting the plants in the parking lot to make them pretty green, to not even show them
on camera.
And then you know, just the craziness of going out and cleaning out the car, and then picking up Corey from work, and then meeting David Walliser, and then going to Lowe's and getting the
car down the highway,
towing the
come unlatched several times.
Coming unlatched and just free coasting onto the shoulder of the highway. And Corey is just insane. He never once like questioned it or thought that.
And I have to say that he specifically asked that, you know, I mean, you're talking about this guy's not only giving us his car that he may or may not plan on getting fixed, but he's also willing to sit behind the car as we have him crash it into a tree at, you know, 30, 35 miles per hour, which doesn't sound fast, but when you're in a car, that's actually pretty fast. People have died, you know, driving that fast. And the only thing he asked was just make sure that I'm safe. So when you ask to be safe on a low to no budget project, when basically David and I are forking up what little money we have in our own pockets to come up with the quote-unquote safety gear, we went to Walmart, picked up a padded baseball helmet, I think it might have been an extra large life vest jacket for the padding, just in case he hit the steering wheel. And then we picked up some like some towing straps to harness him into the seat, along with, you know, the actual seat belt that was in the car, and then I think it was a pair of safety goggles, and that was his safety gear. And we had shown him the bag of what we got, and he was like, "All right, that'll work." And it was just amazing because we could have spent a lot more time, a lot more money actually getting, you know, real safety gear for him. You know, maybe going to, I mean, Jacksonville's big on NASCAR. We could have probably found a race shop around here that actually had that kind of gear, but we just didn't have that kind of money. You know, we obviously wanted them to be okay and be careful, but it was just funny to have that kind of equipment on him, and it's just amazing.
And as difficult as David and Corey made that night, we really couldn't have done it without them. They went and scouted the location while we were shooting in this garage, the trip scene, and they found the location. They found this construction site way out in the middle of nowhere, and we went out there and crashed the car, and we were racing sunlight because the construction crew was going to be coming out there. So we crashed the car just and break the windows out, pour blood on everything, and put it and shoot the scene just in time to miss the sunlight. And then you drove all the way down to Orlando, and that was the first.
Not to mention the fact that we actually left the car there.
Yeah, we left the car on the scene. We had to go straight to Orlando, so we didn't have time to worry about it even if we wanted to. So we went straight to Orlando, and that was the first extras scene that we ever shot. And I'm kind of angry now. The scene did not even make it in the movie, and we did that much for it. It was really fun to shoot. Both of us, we were so delirious, and you know, for it to be such a great memory, it's the actual memory of it is really, really blurry. And then you drove all the way back, and I remember, like, at the end of every other shoot, we'd bullshit for like an hour and a half afterwards, patting each other on the back and laughing with each other, and, oh, that was great, no, you were great, no, you were great. But that day, you pulled up to my apartment, and I was like, yeah. And you're like, yeah, I'll call you later. And that was it. That was it. The enjoyment was, it was there, but we were too tired to actually feel it. But that was a crazy, crazy, crazy exhausting weekend that nothing, I don't think, in my life will ever live up to it.
My inner child was screaming, "Why are you doing this scene?" The child that my parents had raised to be a good Christian son, to have faith in the things that I learned in church, was not at all happy with the scene that we were doing. But my adult mind understood that it was not so much about the life and death of Jesus as it was about the sacrifice that was being made. And that scene was disturbing, uncomfortable, but at the same time I knew that it was going to hit home and make its point, especially for Kyle's story, because of what he goes through with his dad, and because his dad is a pastor. It just seemed perfect. I mean, and it was amazing because we didn't think that it was really gonna turn out to be necessarily anything spectacular. I mean, we knew it was going to be a pretty cool scene when it was shot, but when, again, we didn't, not having a budget, just having, just a little bottle of what was left of the fake blood we had, and leather whip that we got at a costume shop, and then Ethan came out in this little silk garb type thing. The location that we had was actually this place behind where my dad lives. I guess there's a church back there somewhere, and they have this artificial Bethlehem sort of nativity walkthrough scene, and one of the last things that you walk through, one of the last things you see is actually the three crosses, and it's perfect because you actually have the ability to climb up on this cross. There's a nice foot pedestal there. There's 2 ropes on each side of it so that you can put your arms through it, and it was really, I mean, it was a beautiful, beautiful scene the way it was shot, and it was heart-wrenching too to see what was happening, because Pastor Melbourne was the one that was doing the beating on Kyle, and it turned out really nice because between the black leather streaks that the black was sort of bleeding onto Ethan's skin, mixed in with the blood, I mean, it literally looked like his skin was welting up. And then afterwards we ended up walking through the $400,000 house neighborhood. He had no change of clothes to bring with him. It was, again, freezing cold out there, and he was drenched in blood with this little silk garb that came up, just below his crotch. It was interesting.
Yeah, they weren't very happy with you for making us go through the swamp. And I remember it took us a while to get out there. When we finally got out there, I told you that I had forgot the blood in the car, and the look on your face and everybody else's face. I was murdered 3 times in a row right there. It was so great. Oh man, that was wonderful. That was really fun to shoot because, once again, it was something that a lot of people has seen. It was fun to show it in a different light. And the way Ben walks away in the end and screams too, neither of us said to do that. Right. And I think that worked out awesome. That day really was, it felt so right and so wrong all at the same time. It was crazy. That day was fun because we felt it was another one of those days where we felt like we had taken another step in filmmaking. We were gonna have a makeup artist on set, giving us scars, and it was somebody that we were paying. So this is somebody that we really could say, I need you to do this. I need this to look more like that, because we were the customer, and the customer is always right. We were paying her, and it was just very weird to have that kind of, I don't want to say power, because it's not really like a power trip any kind of thing. It's just that convenience to not have that discomfort when you have to ask somebody for something. There's no, and that was awesome because and she was really good. She gave us like these beautiful looking scars that were so amazing looking, and I was really excited to show the cut and the long takes of that scene, the way it all panned out. It was that was one of the shoots that I was very, very excited about doing, because of all the different techniques that gets used in it, and I had never seen special makeup effects done before, so I was also very excited to see that.
The thing about that scene for me was when the events happened, when the mother shot herself, and then when Roger, played by Jason Barton, bent down, and of course, he just lost his dad, and he blames himself for it, and now he's lost his mother, which obviously he's going to blame himself for that too. So he's, takes the gun from his mom, and he's starting to pull the trigger, and it was so great because there was this statue. It was like this angel behind them in this garden area, and there was just little blood splatters on this angel.
That was another great location, and tipping.
Yeah. And she's on the ground. She's got the back of her head's just matted with blood, and there's blood all beneath her and everything, and he's above her trying to do himself in, and he can't because there's no bullets left in the gun. And he realizes that he still has the knife. He cuts himself, and then my favorite part of the scene is when she's already lying down, and obviously she's already taken her last breath, and she's staring off into nothing, and I have to say she did a great job. I've always taken, I've always admired the people that have the ability to just get that blank stare on their face when they're, supposed to be acting as if, they're dead. And she really pulled it off. There was just this glaze over her eyes, and there was not a blink, not a breath was taken, and it was really a long shot. And then Jason, slowly knelt down, and he had that same ability to put that glaze and that blank stare over his eyes. And the most beautiful shot of the entire scene is when his blood and her blood just slowly joined. These two puddles just slowly joined.
That was actually written
together, and that was one of those scenes where it was written, and then when it was shot, it was exactly as we saw it.
Very surreal.
It was exactly as we saw it, and again, we got lucky with the location, the people, the makeup artist coming out, and it's just it made me really enjoy what we were doing. Filmmaking on that day was just a wonderful thing to be a part of. My first thought is that we've finished this movie easily. How many months ago has it been?
Time.
It's I really don't. When did we have the premiere? That was in November, wasn't it? Okay, so I think we've been finished with this movie for about 6 to 8 months, I think. But it's still, here we are sitting down doing an interview. David's still working on the DVD, so it's one of those things where it's kind of like having a kid, a child in your home that is fully ready and fully capable of moving out on their own. You love that child to death, but you're sort of ready to just kick the child out of the house so that you can live your life, the way you want to live your life. And what I mean by that is that we are eager and really ready to start other projects. We've got, several ideas that we want to tackle. We want to take a hiatus from filming major projects, at least staying away from anything that's going to suck up our lives for 2 years, and really focus on a lot of writing and pick out of the basket what we want to do next, what we want to invest our time and money in. That's my first thought, and of course, it's been great. I mean, I've made a lot of friends. I've met a lot of interesting people. My family has stuck it out with me through thick and thin. During this whole process, I was planning a wedding. I was engaged, so it was trying to balance my personal life with this, and then my regular career to keep the money coming in so I could take care of my family and fund this project. All these different things. I mean, it really takes a toll on you, but it's the best kind of stress I've ever dealt with. I mean, there was a lot of stress involved, but it was a good kind of stress, and I look forward to working with David again. I look forward to our next project. I look forward to doing more writing, and I really, really look forward to putting Tomorrow Mourning in that DVD case and getting it out to the masses and wishing it farewell.
Ditto. And on top of that, not on top of that as in superior to that, but in addition to that, it's great when something not only is a great experience, but is also the foundation of many, many more great experiences, and just the many projects that are going to come from Tomorrow Mourning, and the relationships that came out of Tomorrow Mourning, the people that we have to work with now. In each movie that I've done, a couple people have stayed along, and it's grown each and every time, but no movie has been like Tomorrow Mourning, and I guess it's because of how long the experience was and how much our lives changed throughout the whole experience, just because of the length of time it took to make it. It's become something more than a movie in my eyes. It's become like my best friend and my worst enemy, and it's become that disgusting family member that comes over who you hate, and then it's also that funny uncle who you love to hang around. It's become all these different physical things to me, because it's a living, breathing thing now, and it's really, really weird to look back and see the 2 years of your life was spent making something come alive, and that's crazy, which is the whole experience to begin with. So, are you ready to ride?
I'm ready to ride. I think my dog ran away.
Let's go get him.